On today's episode of For Our Good and His Glory.
So my husband, in the time that I was gone, had met up with this really awesome pastor named Dewey. And Dewey was like, "You want to pray the prayer?" And Curtis was like, I'm ready. I'm ready to pray the prayer. I already had my come to Jesus moment. Let's do this.
Go.
And so Curtis prayed the prayer. He gave his life to Christ. He got baptized in a public confession of faith, and he starts attending church every time the doors are open. And that's where Mr. David had told us that back in like the year 2000, he has visions, prophetic visions and dreams and stuff that he keeps it all in a notebook. And he woke up one night after having a dream and he wrote it all down that he was going to get a blonde-headed, blue-eyed little boy and his brown-headed little sister, that they would only have them for a while and their job was only to love them back to him.
Wow.
And he has the notebook and he showed it to us. And he was like, I've been waiting for years for these babies. I got a phone call. I remember we were visiting my parents and I got the phone call. Hey, when you go to pick your kids up tomorrow, you might want to bring an extra vehicle. And I'm like, what? Well, they're going to get to come home.
Mm.
And we didn't have to go to court for it or anything. So it was a little over 6 months and we got to bring our kids home. And then the whole world shut down for COVID and I got them for 6 whole months by themselves at home.
Whoa.
God really replaced everything. I got a phone, but they sentenced him to 10 years in prison, which is the absolute minimum that he could get sentenced to. And so you have my husband and he's waking up and he's thank you, Jesus, all day. And he's got his Bible open and he's got his little worship music playing on his little prison issued MP3. And the time that he's been gone, God has prompted me, April, go back and get your degree. You have all this time on your hands.
Praise God.
Well, I didn't really have that much time, but I made time. And I did. I went back and got my degree and I graduated summa cum laude.
Yes, that's good.
Had a 4.0 when I unlocked the class on his way.
Welcome to For Our Good and His Glory, brought to you by Immeasurably More, where we sit down with people whose stories felt impossible, but God was working behind the scenes for their good and His glory. Last week, we left off with April telling us about her kids being fostered by Mr. David and Miss Esther. So today we are going to go into part 2 of the rest of April's story. Before we do that, let's pause and hear from today's episode sponsor, Freedom Caregivers and Companions.
Freedom Caregiver and Companion's story began with one mission: to support families navigating the challenges of caring for aging loved ones. Founded by Hillary Bailey, their compassionate team provides personalized in-home care that helps families find balance, peace of mind, and confidence knowing their loved ones are in capable, caring hands. When God gave Hillary this mission, her goal wasn't to create a business, but to build a legacy. Her love for and experience with the aging population not only gave her a dream, but lit a fire within her to raise the bar on the standard of care that those who had spent years caring for others would receive in the comfort of their own homes. The care she and her team offer go above and beyond the norm. The relationship present is not just caregiver and client, but family. Freedom Caregiver and Companions provides compassionate, personalized in-home care across North Houston. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, their website, freedomcaregivers.net, or give them a call at 346-468-1000.
Okay. So David and Esther were just loving on my babies. They were exactly what my kids needed, and it gave Curtis and I a sense of security as well, to know that our babies were so well loved and looked after. Now, they were still very apprehensive about us, which is understandable because these are two people that have never really been around drugs or drug dealers. And so they naturally were terrified to run into us, apparently. So in the midst of all of this, we would buy gifts for our kids because we felt so guilty, right? So every time we went to a visit, we'd go to Walmart and we'd get them a toy. And apparently we stopped at the Road City Walmart one day, and they lived in Fate at the time, and Mr. David seen us. We did not know what they looked like at all because they were so, I think it was mostly Miss Esther that was scared of us. But he seen us, and he followed us kind of like a couple steps back, which sounds weird, but it's not. He was just so interested in it because he told us afterwards that he was like, I followed you guys, and there was so much love, and there was just this shine about y'all, and you could just hear, he said, I could hear you guys talking about how much you loved your kids and how you know, you were going to keep fighting for him, and it mattered to him, you know. So I get out of rehab, and I think I got out and we went straight to a visit, which was awesome. I think I told the kids that I graduated from mommy's school, which was cool, and I'm really, really grateful that I went to rehab, because in early recovery, you have to change people, places, and things. And if I would have stuck around Hunt County, Lone Oak, all that stuff, I don't think I would have gotten too much better. And the comments online, because our mugshots were plastered online too, they were brutal. I actually didn't read those for months. And when I finally did, it still just broke my heart. Like, how can people say these things? So my husband, in the time that I was gone, had met up with this really awesome pastor named Dewey. And Dewey was like, you want to pray the prayer? And Curtis was like, I'm ready to pray the prayer. I already had my come to Jesus moment. Let's do this.
Let's go.
And so Curtis prayed the prayer. He gave his life to Christ. He got baptized in a public confession of faith, and he starts attending church every time the doors are open. And I'm like, I'm not going to that church. I'm from Lone Oak. This church is out in the boondocks. I've been there. I went to walk-ins there. I know people there. Like, I don't want to be judged. And we went to that church, and my husband had not went to Sunday school yet, and I didn't know why, because he was like, yeah, we're going to go to Sunday school. I haven't been to Sunday school yet for the first time. And I was like, why? And he was like, oh, you know, and I'm like, okay, cool. And we walk into Sunday school at the church that I didn't want to go to, and I don't know if anybody, Randy Meeks, who was the sheriff, not like a sheriff, the sheriff that signed the search warrant to kick my door in, was the Sunday school teacher. And I was like,
wow.
God thing, because Randy's wife at the time, Donna, instantly recognized us and was like, oh no, we're helping them. So grateful for them. Randy ended up kind of becoming like another dad, much to his dismay, to me. And they really just kind of nursed us back to health, and our church really did. And I ended up getting baptized out there at a revival in a water trough for livestock.
You know what?
That's right.
But I will tell you that, you know, a lot of times when you have that baptism, that public confession of faith, it's just symbolic, right? For me, I felt something. Like, when I came out of the water, I felt different. I was starving for the word of the Lord. I was starving to dive into the Bible. I was starving to be more, to do more, to just walk in the footsteps that God laid for me, not that I've laid for me. And the next thing I know, like the very next morning, I wake up and I had the Bible open, and I remember we had this ottoman, and I would just be leaned over it, and I'm reading through, and I'm trying to memorize things, and just I needed more. And God gave me this vision right then that I would be on a stage with a microphone. It didn't tell me what I was going to be doing on that stage and with a microphone, but it was going to be for His glory. And at this time, I'm still too terrified to get on a stage. Like, I literally have stage fright. I'm on the stage every single Sunday.
Yeah, and I can't tell you have a stage fright at all.
I'm a good bluffer.
Yeah.
I do. I panic really bad. And I've also been able to get on a stage from here to Costa Rica with a microphone and share my story. And so that vision has really stuck with me, and I've always known that everything that I do from here on out is going to be to the glory of God, not to the glory of April, because the glory of April will cloud my judgment. I don't mind the spotlight. I get a little freaked out, but once I get going, I'm going to get going. So I have to, I know that everything that I'm doing is trying to be for His glory. And as time goes on, and we're at the church every time the doors were open. And at that time, the church, there wasn't that many people there, and we had like a little, like how people hide their spare key. We had a spare key at church, and they showed us where it was. So Curtis and I would go up there even on nights that nothing was going on, and we would just pray. And I mean, what can you do? We're literally missing our kids, and I still felt so empty without my babies. And we just kept doing what you're supposed to do. We passed every drug test, every single one, and that's unheard of. For as long as we were using, they told us that it would probably take 6 months to a year to pass a hair follicle. We passed ours in 3 months. And they were astonished. They were like, that doesn't happen. I said, well, with God it does.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, my God is stronger than any drug that's on this earth. And they kept telling us, well, it's going to be 2 years. No, it's going to be 18 months before you can get your kids back. Well, now it's down to a year before you can get your kids back. And I was like, I'm still not going to accept that. But if that's what God wants, then that's what God wants. But I don't feel that. And we ended up petitioning the courts. I think it was about 4.5, maybe 5 months in, to try to get them to be able to come home. It was right before Christmas. It didn't work out. It wasn't the right timing. And we know that we kind of pushed that. We were kind of misaligned with the will that God had for us. We weren't really following his timeline. We followed ours instead. And we kind of got humbled there, which we needed. Mm-hmm. But we did get extended visits. And we did get them on Christmas Day and Christmas Eve and New Year's Day and New Year's Eve. And we got to get them for the whole day. My only stipulation was they weren't allowed to come home because they didn't want to build their hopes up. Mm-hmm. So we went to every family member's house we've ever had. You know, like we had a good time. We went all the places. We spent hours at the bowling alley and shenanigans and all the places. And in the meantime of that, we also stopped meeting at the CPS office. We got to meet at the Roy City Police Station with the foster parents and establish a relationship with them. And that mattered so much. And that's where Mr. David had told us that back in like the year 2000, he has visions, prophetic visions and dreams and stuff that he keeps it all in a notebook. And he woke up one night after having a dream and he wrote it all down that he was going to get a blonde-headed, blue-eyed little boy and his brown-headed little sister, but they would only have them for a while, and their job was only to love them back to him. Wow. And he has the notebook, and he showed it to us, and he was like, I've been waiting for years for these babies. And it just, So, I know we kept doing everything right. We would have 4-hour-long visits on the weekends with them, and we had this great relationship with the foster parents. And we were like, we need our kids back. It's time. Like, they didn't believe that we were going to keep doing good. You know, they look at us like we're a statistic. And in the grand scheme of things, I get it. I get why you would look at somebody that was a heavy drug addict and say, you're just a statistic. Statistics aren't on your side. And I'm like, Jesus is, though. Mm-hmm. So your statistics could go in the trash can. Mm-hmm. And, of course, it's easy to find Jesus in jail cells. So that people use that excuse a lot. But one thing that I know that we had going for us, and this is what the CASA workers and the case workers and everybody along the way, even Randy Meeks, who originally arrested us, the man gave a statement about us to the Herald Banner, about how terrible and disturbed we were. You know, they all had our backs, so they were like, there's something different about them. And I'm like, yeah, it's Jesus. And we ended up, I got a phone call. I remember we were visiting my parents, and I got the phone call, hey, when you go to pick your kids up tomorrow, you might want to bring an extra vehicle. And I'm like, why? Well, they're going to get to come home. Mm-hmm. And we didn't have to go to court for it or anything. So it was a little over 6 months, and we got to bring our kids home. And then the whole world shut down for COVID, and I got them for 6 whole months by themselves at home. Whoa. God really replaced everything.
Yeah. It does. Okay, so we see God's hand from the very beginning, even before anything happened. Because, like, I know Curtis now, and I would say I even saw, like, in your story, when you were talking about how he was doing drugs, but he didn't want you to get involved. And then you were going to leave and go to Houston, and he was like, yes, you need to do that. Because he felt in his own, you know, not strength. He knew that he couldn't overcome that. Yes. He wanted better for y'all.
Yes.
So that's the Curtis I know.
Yes.
I didn't know that Curtis, but like his heart was already there, and God was already starting to do things even before anyone knew. That's what God does. Yes. He goes ahead of us and he prepares the way.
Absolutely.
So you have your kids now, and you're shut down for COVID, so you get extended time just to catch up and just reconnect with them, and probably to get. I mean, David and Esther, no doubt they did an amazing job, but now you're getting to get their anxieties under control. Yes. And they're back with mama, and you're getting to do your loving thing.
Yes.
And just get them back in their own home. So, but we still have to deal with the consequences of what's taken place. And so that's where we get into our testing and pruning, because God is good, but he's got to bring us through all of it in order to bring it full circle. So kind of talk about what happens next.
So we got to follow the laws of the land. You know, it says that in the Bible that we have to follow the laws of the land, and unfortunately, there's going to be consequences for our poor choices. And so, I think I found out that I got indicted on the charges for me because my mom called me and she seen it in the paper, and I was like, "I'm in the paper again." Gosh. Like my own attorney didn't even call me. They were like, they didn't even know. And so I freak out. I call the attorney. I'm like, hey, it says I just got indicted. This is a felony charge. In the state of Texas, especially in Hunt County, Texas, they don't really like to offer probation for a first-degree felony for manufacture and delivery of a controlled substance. They had me on video doing a sale, you know. So this was a big deal. I was terrified. I was facing 10 years in prison. And my attorney was like, girl, don't worry. And I'm like, kind of impossible. But God had his hand in on that. And the way everything kind of worked out and the people that he had put in my life thus far kind of put their neck out for me. And I ended up getting approved for doing the, what is it called? Deferred adjudication to where I wouldn't be a felon. And they gave me 2 years of deferred probation. And, I mean, that's a walk in the park. I was already clean. I was already doing everything I was supposed to do. I got a job. I was working at the cafeteria at the elementary school, which, by the way, terrible job. I hated that job so bad.
But you did so well at it.
Hated it so much. But the fact that I even got hired there while I was on felony probation is wild. That was a God thing, too, because people that knew me put their faith in me. And I'm very thankful for that. But I ended up getting off of probation a year early. The judge signed off on it, and God love her. She, as soon as we're still doing Zoom court hearings, and I was the first one, and she was like, I'm so excited for this. Because she had watched our journey. And in the midst of all of this, we find out that my husband has a federal warrant for his arrest. So we both got arrested for the manufacture and delivery of a controlled substance. I had 1 controlled buy done on me. Curtis, I think, had 3 done on him. But because of who he was getting the drugs from and who he was messing with, he got roped into a giant, what they call conspiracy case. Conspiracy to, I think it's distribute methamphetamine. And basically, that's just the feds saying, hey, we know that you're messing with this person, and this person. We're about to wrap y'all all up. And when it goes federal, that's when it's serious, because you're not going to get probation for federal stuff at all. And so we began kind of dealing with that. That was a big test for us, because I was thinking, why would God let us up here? We're in recovery. We call it the pink cloud. You know, you're on this really high pink cloud. You're floating around. You're happy. Why would somebody pull my cloud out of the sky? You know, we're doing so good. Curtis had went on a mission trip to Costa Rica and like helped rebuild huts in the jungle. It was like, just when I tell y'all this man is on fire for Jesus, it is honestly gross sometimes. Like, I'm just like, can you do something wrong? But he's so good. And to know that there's a federal warrant for his arrest, this is the big boys. This is serious. He's probably not going to get probation. There was like a 5% chance he might get probation. And the worst part about it was his dad went to federal prison for methamphetamine. For 17 and a half years, his dad did a federal prison sentence. It was a generational curse that just, I mean, my goodness, you know? And so we kind of had to deal with that. And it was very quiet for a while until you have to do the arraignment stuff. And Randy Meeks, the sheriff at the time, he was like, all right, well, I've talked to some people, I've worked it out. They want you to turn yourself in. And this was, I think it was the weekend, the Sunday before Thanksgiving, and I couldn't tell you what year it was, but he let Curtis walk in there with dignity to turn himself in, and then they shipped him over. I think it was to Sherman or Bonham, one of those. That's where the federal holding facility is. And he was in there until we tried to get him out on what they call pretrial release, and they didn't want to do it. And of course, me and my big mouth in the process of all of this, because they're looking at us like co-conspirators, and they were threatening to indict me too. And we're on the phone, and they were talking about, well, you know, you might not be able to have contact with your wife. And I was like, they can't do that. I'm going to do what I want. You're my husband. And they played it the very next day at the next hearing that morning. And they're like, is this you, Miss McMennamy? And I was like, huh? I think I called the prosecutor a couple of not so nice names too. I was still a baby Christian though. And they played that. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. Foot, insert mouth. And unfortunately, that is a common pattern in my life, right? Not so much as I used to now, but so it was a whole process. And finally, they were like, okay, well, he can get out on pretrial release, but he cannot stay at the same house with you and those kids. And we were like, what? Like, you can come to our house, you can search it, I'll take drug tests. It didn't matter. We were co-conspirators. Mm-hmm. And so my grandparents, God love them, Nanny and Papa, the ones that prayed for us, they stepped in. And they were like, well, he could stay here. We have extra rooms. And my I think Papa was 82 at the time. 82-year-old Papa got in that car with me, and I drove him over to Bonham. And he sat outside, or he actually went inside of the courthouse and testified under oath that he would be responsible for my husband if something happened, that he would turn him in if he did something wrong. And Papa's also very hard of hearing and going blind, okay? So he was like, I have him on the stand, he's like, huh? Cutest little man ever. But they would have vouched for Curtis 1,000 times over. They knew that God had that man and nobody else needed to have him. And they let Curtis out on December 23rd. So he was in there for almost a month. And that was a couple of years before he actually had to go away. So he was at my grandparents' house living. And he couldn't live with us, which is hard enough. Like, what in the world? He could come out to the house, but he couldn't be there past 10 p.m. Because after 10 p.m., you turn back into criminals. And they never said, though, that we couldn't spend the night with him. So we did. We wanted to get up every Sunday and go to church as a family still. That was very important to us. So every Saturday night, we spent the night at my grandparents' house. And it turned into something so fun and so beautiful. It's like, have y'all seen the TikToks and stuff of like the adult kids spend the night at their grandparents? Because it's awesome.
That is cool.
I'm so grateful that we were there for that, because not only do my kids get to experience how amazing my grandparents are, but when my nanny, who had a hard time getting around, fell one morning. She fell in the living room and she broke her hip and she couldn't get up. And Emma just so happened to be in there, and she said, Emma, I need you to go get help. Mm-hmm. And she was able to come get us, and we were able to call the ambulance for her so she could get the surgery. Otherwise, she would have laid there, because my poor Papa can't hear, y'all.
Yeah.
She could have screamed her little heart out. He would have been like, yeah. Is that a bird? So I'm very, very grateful for that. And then Curtis was a big help to them as well. And I think that they were very healing for him, because Curtis had, not the greatest home life either. Mm-hmm. And he didn't really have the grandparents like I did. Like, they're so nurturing. Nanny had dinner on the table every time my husband walked in the door, okay? She fed him good. Had sweet tea waiting. Mm-hmm. So it was just very sweet that we got to do that. And then it was, I think, 1.5 years, 2 years. And we were waiting for sentencing. The whole time he has to adhere to curfew. If we had to get permission to go on a vacation, we had to get permission. Like when Emma played softball, if we were going to be gone past 10 p.m., he would have to call and let him know. Passed every drug test, passed every home check, he was literally a model felon. If that makes sense. And then finally they scheduled his sentencing hearing. And honestly, the whole time, I don't know if I didn't process it, or if I was like, it's out of sight, out of mind. My spicy mind was like, I'm just not going to deal with this, so we're going to push this over here and we're going to go have fun. Mm-hmm. I don't really know, or maybe that was God protecting me. I'm not sure, but it never comprehended in my head that it never just fell through the cracks that your husband is about to be gone. Mm-hmm. And so we went to his sentencing hearing, which, side note on that, it was insane. It was insane how many people showed up in Sherman, Texas, at that courthouse to support my husband. The judge actually remarked that he had never received so many letters of recommendation from people of all walks of life, including the fire chief, the sheriff that arrested him, a pastor, actually a couple pastors. There was somebody else that I don't even know. It was so many different community members. Oh, other cops wrote on his behalf, but there was I think 60 different letters of please have leniency on him. Mm-hmm. And we had the whole courthouse packed.
Yeah, I want to speak to that, because this was during the time that we were really getting to know Curtis, and he hadn't moved here yet because we were just in the kind of dating. And I can remember I knew you, yes, and I knew Curtis was your husband, but I didn't know Curtis. And so I would come home from church, and I would tell Travis, there was this guy greeting at the door, and he greets like Medea, he's like, and I love him. He's just so charismatic and just joyful and happy. Yes. And then when I got to know his story, I was just like, oh my goodness. And so he kind of started getting to know him as well. Not as much because he wasn't here, but when we started doing those letters, we were like, oh, we want to write one. Yes. And so Mom and I came to the trial, and I can just remember being so mad the whole time at that judge because he was doing the sentencing. and all the things. And then it was like at the end, what you're talking about, he was like, to everybody there, like, I see y'all. Like, I don't want to do this.
Yes.
I have to follow, like,
the guidelines.
What the law says, but this is not what I want. And
Yes.
he might have even talked about him possibly. Did he talk about him maybe being over there earlier during that? Maybe you just did later.
Maybe I did later. I don't think he did. But he talked about, the judge literally told us, if there was any way that I could change this, I would. I don't want to do this. I've never had this many people moved. I've never been this moved. But they sentenced him to 10 years in prison, which was the absolute minimum that he could get sentenced to. And I remember sitting there, and it's like, it just went, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like all the sound just went out. It was like I was, like when you're on an airplane and as soon as you cross the threshold and everything pops and you can't hear anything, that's exactly what happened. And I was like, this is really happening. I'm about to have to be a single mom. I'm married. I'm going to be a single mom. How do I tell my kids that their dad's fixing to go to prison for 10 years? How am I going to survive? How am I going to financially make it? I don't make any money. I work at a school. Not even as a teacher. I'm below that, Like, what am I going to do? My husband made all the money. How am I going to support my kids? And then I looked up at him, and there was just this look on his face, and I was like, okay, he's fixing to throw up. So then they dismissed us. But he did give Curtis, I think it was 60 days. 60 days before he had to self-report to prison. So he was like, I'm going to give you, no, it was 90 days, I think. He was like, I'm going to give you.
It was September. I remember.
Yeah, we had to go September.
He had to go September 1st.
Yes. And it was May, June, July. Yeah, so it was 90 days that he gave us. And he was like, it's a lot longer than I give most people, but I'm going to let you guys tie up whatever and make some memories as a family. And I remember his pretrial officer, that it's basically like a parole officer, probation officer, that's a federal guy. I remember that he was there, and he kind of told them too. He was like, listen, I'm not going to call you. I'm not going to track you. You need to take your family on a vacation. Go home. Because he hadn't been allowed to stay at home. But everybody was waiting out on the front steps of the courthouse, and as soon as we walked out, I seen everybody. I just lost it. And I know that Curtis, who I should have been being strong for at the time, he just grabbed me, and he just let me cry. And then I look up, and everybody else is crying, and I was like, okay, I'm not alone in this. Like, God has given me such a great tribe of people. And so we did. We came home that night. We got to sleep in our bed for the first time in 2 years. And he stayed there until it was time to turn himself in. And we went on I think it was like a 11-day long, 10-day long.
It was a 2-week trip, right?
2-week
Gulf
long.
Shores, right?
It was Dauphin Island, Alabama.
Yeah, to the beach.
And it was fantastic. We needed it. The kids needed it. We went with some really great friends of ours, which are a hoot. We needed that too. They needed that. And, we made the best out of our time. We really did. And, we just did all the things. I know, like, when the fair was around, Curtis brought our kids and everybody's kids, really, to the fair, like, every single night. I ended up with, like, 6 fair fish. And then, of course, he left. He let me deal with the fair fish. They're supposed to die after, like, 2 weeks. These ones live forever. But we had to drop him off in El Reno, Oklahoma, at FCL Reno Camp, September 1st of 2023. And I don't think I really realized the magnitude of the depth of that kind of loneliness, because that man's my best friend. Like, we literally walked through hell together. And God pulled us out of that. And I've been with him since I was 21 years old. I'm 38, about to be 39. Like, my entire adult life, I've sit with him. I don't know how to function without him. I didn't. And I'm raising our kids together, and it was so heavy at the time. And I'm going to be honest, part of that trial too was figuring out how to adjust without him. It was so heavy, it was so hard. I was so lonely, like, so crushing lonely. I hated it. How do you do that? Like, that's your person, that's your puzzle piece. It's the other part of me, and I can't be with it.
Can we cue a little bit of the conversation that we had a little bit earlier when we called in the middle of this podcast?
Yes, absolutely.
Husband calling.
Speaking now.
Hi, Lennon.
Hello.
I love you.
Love you too. Howdy doody.
Hey, Curtis.
Hey, Curtis.
Oh, hello, friend. What are y'all got going on?
A little podcast stuff.
Yeah, we're recording.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Praise the Lord. God is good.
Yes,
All
he
the time.
is.
That's good. I forgot about that.
It's okay.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I'm struggling, and I'm trying to still be the best mom I can be because my kids have this version of me that they've always deserved to have, and I'm able to be a healthy version of myself for them. That I'm there, no questions asked. Anyways, but I'm trying to hold it together for them. I'm trying to hold it together for everybody's worried about me, as they should have been, because I was inwardly spiraling. There was a lot of other drama happening on the outside of like my circle that I really leaned on, that I felt like as soon as Curtis went away that it was kind of like, oh, we're going to try to get you to sway this way now. And it really hurt me really bad. And when I get hurt, I'm bouncing. You hear me? And any emotion that I have is going to look like I'm really mad. I can't help it. It's just how my face falls. Also, I'm probably not the best I wasn't for sure at processing emotions. I am a little bit better now, but there was so much on my shoulders, on my plate, and I felt like, I think looking back at it, I tried to take some of it away from God, like to try to manage it myself because it was so heavy, and I just, like, God, it hurts so bad. I just, let me try to do it. Maybe I can do it better, like a genius would do. And so it kind of imploded. I was super depressed. I spiraled. And when I say I spiraled, I wasn't like about to go use. God took the taste of drugs out of my mouth. I've never wanted to get high ever again in my life. The thought actually makes me want to But it was, I isolated. And isolation for me is very, very dangerous. I isolated, and then I was snappy, and I wasn't getting into the word, and I just felt myself like reverting back to an unhealthy version of myself. And so I don't really know when it happened, but Curtis was doing the same thing. And so one night during a phone call, we both kind of figured out that, like, we're literally messing ourselves up here. We have to be better. We have to be better, not only because we're messengers of the kingdom, but we have to be better because we have kids that are watching us. And we have to be better because our marriage deserves better, And so we started sending each other scriptures because there's like a little messaging app, and we're sending each other scriptures. I'm like, listen, I heard this today. I would listen to a sermon, and I'm like, I just heard this in a sermon today, or this is on a devotional today, and he would send me something, and the next thing I know, like, instead of being negative or poor, pitiful me, poor, woe is me, like, we're building each other. We're blessed. And we start looking at his prison sentence more of a mission trip rather than a punishment. And granted, it is a punishment for, breaking the law and all that kind of stuff, but it is a mission trip too, because in the time that Curtis has been there, he's been there almost 3 years now. And his very first roommate, I think his name was Bailey. He was a younger guy. He was a Satanist. Had 666 tattooed across him. Was just hardcore. Nope. Okay. And it was a God thing that he even ended up as a cellie. That's roommate for everybody else. With my husband, and you can't not end up worshiping. Curtis shines the light of Jesus so brightly. It's, like I said, it's ridiculous.
I agree.
And so you have my husband, and he's waking up, and he's thank you, Jesus, all day, and he's got his Bible open, and he's got his little worship music playing on his little prison-issued MP3, and, and when it's not worship music playing, he's still singing, and he's going to Bible studies, and he's going to church services, and he's just worshiping, no matter, thank you, God, for waking me up, thank you for the food that I got to eat last night, thank you for giving me this pillow, because I'm not supposed to have a pillow, but now I have a pillow,
Yeah.
And Bailey's like, all right, what's going on? Why are you so happy? You're in prison, my guy. And he was like, Curtis is like, I'm blessed. I got a beautiful wife. I got beautiful kids. I got a home to go home to. I came in here a saved man. I'm blessed. And this guy's like, this guy is cuckoo. And he probably is a little bit, but that's why I love him. But Bailey wasn't in there for that long. But he was, I think it was 3 months he had to stay in there. And in the time that he met Curtis till the time that he got out, Curtis had him in, this guy's so interested, he wants a Bible. He just wants to check it out, right? Next thing you know, he's going to the Bible studies. He's going to a church service. He wants to hear the music. And before that young man left, he had professed Jesus as his Savior. Yes. That's what I'm saying. It's a mission trip in there.
Yeah.
And this isn't the only situation. Curtis has truly affected the lives of so many of these men that's in this camp. And to me, I know God has him there because El Reno, Oklahoma is 4 hours away from us. It's a pretty long trip. He could have ended up in Texarkana or Beaumont or, somewhere in Texas, but it's in Oklahoma. And I'm so grateful that he is, because where he is, he's touching lives. He's doing the Lord's work up there. And not only that, the Lord's working on Curtis up there too, because where he was getting bitter and stuff, then all of a sudden my husband gets a job, because this is 10,000 acre facility ranch up there. Curtis gets a job working on the ranch, working with the cows. Curtis always wanted to work with cows. Before he left, he was watching rodeos with one of his good friends, and he was like, I'm going to be steer wrestling one day. I feel like I can do this. He is now. He's tagging the babies. I think he told me the other day that they had like 30-something babies born in one night.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
there's so many out there. He gets in a truck, and he drives 20 minutes down the road to the other part of the ranch, and he gets to be out there in nature with the cows and a couple of the other guys that are like trusted, I guess. He's not confined to the walls. He's not having to just walk the track or walk around and see all the same, well, he said he doesn't have to see all the same faces, but he gets to see cow faces too. Baby cows. And he's doing okay, so we're blessed. We know we're blessed. And instead of focusing on the bad when we're on the phone, we focus on the good. We love each other. Our marriage is stronger than it's ever been. We have amazing kids, even though sometimes they're toots. They're amazing. They're super smart. I love my job. And in the time that he's been gone, God has prompted me, April, go back and get your degree. You have all this time on your hands.
Praise God.
Well, I didn't really have that much time, but I made time. And I did. I went back and got my degree, and I graduated summa cum laude.
Yes, that's good.
Had a 4.0 when I walked across that stage.
Hey.
And I am working my way towards teaching, and it's just, there's so many good things that's come from this, that what the enemy meant to use for evil, God was like, no, these are my soldiers, these are my people. And when we let God use us as the instruments that we need to be used as, then there's so much glorification that comes from it.
100%. Man, what I love the most about it, right? So whenever we came up with this acronym, the TASTE, there were the two T's. One's trial, or the beginning is the trial, and then the second T is testing. And so it's like, man, we were literally sitting at Texas Roadhouse trying to figure out what we're going to do with this, right? And so the difference is oftentimes that trial is going to come before you give your life to Christ, or before you fully submit to Him. And so what happens during the trial is way different than what happens during the testing.
Absolutely.
While those things can look very similar,
Yes.
right? A trial and a test can look very similar, but just as we said, I got to meet April and Curtis back in 2022, and I think it might have been either my first or second time at that church. Curtis is on the stage telling everyone that he is going on a mission trip to prison.
Yeah.
And he's smiling, and April's smiling, but they are the definition of the Lord is my joy.
Yeah.
My joy is found in the Lord. It's not found in my circumstance. And so the difference between trial and testing is where you put your trust and where you put your joy.
Yes.
And so what happens whenever we put our joy and our trust in the Lord during the trial, we get to eat. Right?
Yes.
We get to encourage everyone. She just told you about how much encouragement He has given to people who are lost, confused, trying to figure life out. And she's out here encouraging everybody she comes in contact with. It's like you hear this story and so many times, you see people who are strong Christians and they, you don't see some of the fruit. And then you hear the story of somebody's life who was radically transformed by Jesus. And you get to see the fruit. And that is one of my favorite things to
and
watch.
That's like the wrap up of taste, is because, like, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but like that was the whole idea. Like, we've tasted and seen that the Lord is good, and we want everybody to know what that tastes like. And so, like, when I think of April and Curtis, like, I knew April before, and I was like, oh, she's just got the light of Jesus. And then I get to know Curtis, and like, even looking back, like, from the very beginning with y'all's trials, before he came to Christ, he already loved you like Christ loved the church.
Mm-hmm.
In his own way,
Yes.
because he was always, like, God was always going to come after him.
Absolutely.
And so the seeds were already planting. He just didn't know where that was going to go. And like, I love that he called in the middle of this. We got his voice, because like, people that don't know y'all, they can hear it all day long. Like, they can hear, like, this is so joyful. He's a light in his prison. But like, they're going to get to hear it, and
Yes.
they're going to be able to be like, oh man, because he was so, like, that was the Curtis I know, and he's in prison. Like,
Right.
I would be like, I'm
The
fine.
beginning of that phone call said Curtis is calling from El Reno, Oklahoma.
Yes.
But, you know, like,
And he's just so joyful, and I love you, and you're beautiful, and
Yes.
you're, and I
He
just,
tells me every time we talk on the phone that I'm beautiful and he loves me and he's lucky to have me.
yeah.
I'm like, oh, love that guy.
so good.
Well, I can't wait until he's sitting here with us. And
I can't either.
We get to do this with him too, because I know it's going to happen.
Oh, absolutely.
God's favor's all over y'all. I want to be
I receive it. You want to meet it?
Nice.
Okay, so for those listening, if someone's walked through the same thing you've walked through, or maybe they're just walking through something totally different, because that's what this is all about, what would you say to them?
I would say that if you are in the throes of addiction of any kind, there's only one way out. I don't care what program tells you to do, what any program tells you to do. I don't care what somebody that's made it out tells you to do. The only way out is Jesus. There is a hole that's inside of many of us that are addicts, that we try to fill up with substances or with people even, or with relationships. And the only thing we can ever fill up with to fill that hole up completely and to be complete again is Jesus. Jesus is the only way. He is the way, the truth, and the life.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to be healed is to let him heal you. And, you know, I think one of my favorite verses is Mark chapter 2, verse 17. It says, for it is not those who are healthy who need a doctor, but the sick, which is like, I didn't come to call the righteous, but the sinners. And that really, I love that verse. It's like my life verse, and I think that that's a weird life verse to have. But coming from my background, I really resonate with that, because there's so many of us that don't feel qualified to do the work, to be the hands and feet of Jesus, but he doesn't care if you're qualified. He will make you qualified. And just surrender and let it happen.
Yeah. And so, if you're wondering, like, what does that look like? Like, what does surrender look like? If you stumbled across this podcast and you're like, oh man, maybe I do need to hear a little bit more about Jesus. So the whole idea is that we serve a God who created us in his image. We were created by him and for him. We were created to be tools for him to get the glory. And when he created us, he already had a plan. He knew that humans would mess it up. And so we are all sinners, right? We all sin and fall short of the glory of God. We inherited that from Adam and Eve. They were disobedient, and so we are stuck with that sin nature. And just like April said, there is only one answer to that sin nature, and that's Jesus. God loved us so much that he sent his one and only Son to walk on this earth, to live a perfect life that we never could, to die a gruesome death that we deserve, all so that we have the opportunity to spend eternity with him. So, all we have to do, Romans chapter 10, verses 9 and 10, it says that if we confess with our mouth that Jesus is Lord, and we believe in our hearts that God rose him from the dead, we will be saved. And so that's all it takes. It sounds so simple, but it takes hearing a story. Oftentimes, it's the blood of the Lamb and the testimony of others that leads people to Jesus. And so, if that's you and something's tugging at your heart, just drop us a comment, send us a message. Just get in contact with either myself, Travis. You can find me on Facebook, Travis Hauser, Sarah Hauser. You can find us on Facebook and we'll chat. And April, I'm sure they can find you. Where can they find you?
I'm on every social you can think of. My name is April McMennamy. I'm pretty sure if you even halfway spell it right, you'll find me. Everything's public. Send me a message. I mean, anything, drop a chat. I don't care. If you want help, I have resources to help, especially with addiction. If you're interested in the gospel, I'd be more than happy to share anything that I can possibly share to help you out. And if I don't feel like I'm qualified to help you out, I'm going to shoot you over this way or this way.
Yeah, so this is exactly where our heart is. So the fact that you're our first person that we get to interview, this was such a cool thing, and it's really neat. Of course, thank you for being here. It's just really neat to see the work that God's doing in the midst of our little spot in Greenville in Roanoke, Texas.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you guys being here, and stay tuned. Next week, we'll be back with another episode of For Our Good and His Glory.
If you would like to contact any of the three of us, we will put our contacts in the show notes.
Thank you for tuning in to For Our Good and His Glory. Would you like, comment, subscribe, and share if April's story over the past 2 weeks has touched you? Come back next week to For Our Good and His Glory as we sit down with our friend Stacy, whose story seemed impossible, but God was at work for her good and His glory.